Hello, okay, everyone. Welcome to the Elokus podcast. This is class number 11 in the discourse Vayichan Shom Yisroel. This is the third discourse in the great book Boshash Agdimu 5672. We are concluding chapter 10 today in class number 11 of this third discourse. Okay, so in the last class, he had explained uh, how it is when we measure up the vessels of the world of Atzilus, when we compare it to the various different levels that are above it. So he mitigated the concept that the vessels are ein aroch. We said earlier that the vessels are considered nothing and inconsequential, and in a sense, something totally new. Although they are elikus, although they are divine, yet they're like a complete newborn entity. So he mitigated that in the last two or three classes by showing us that depends to which level we're talking. If we're talking about a preceding level called Adam Kadmon, primordial man, over there we can't really dismiss these vessels and say they're nothing, because the vessels do have some value. Because even in Adam Kadmon, they have already the beginning of these vessels. It's just because they're over the light is so bright that we don't notice the vessels, but the vessels are really there. And even to the Koach Hareshimu, even to the letters of the Ein Sof, the power, the limiting power of God, as it is after the tzimtzum, after the contraction, to that as well, there is already some kind of a recognition already of a force of limitation. And since there is a recognition of a force of limitation, you can already identify a relationship between the vessels of Atzilus and the Koach Hareshimu, albeit it's still very, very far. And although we do call it Ein Aroch, we say it's Ein Aroch, but that's Ein Aroch meaning inconsequential and utterly insignificant. That is in the way it comes about. It doesn't evolve through a connection. It evolves in a disconnected manner. So in a way that it doesn't even look like it evolves from it. It's created from the power of limitation of the Ein Sof to the Kalim. There is an absolute distance, in the sense that you don't see one being born from the other. However, since there is a similarity in the sense that this is limited, now the vessels of Atzilus have real definition, and this is a power to limit, and the power of limitation is seen already as a power of limitation. So therefore, there is already a resemblance. However, when we compare it to the power of limitation, while it's still included in the limitlessness as it is before the tzimtzum, then it's really ein aroch, then it's really considered inconsequential, the vessels of Atzilus, the vessels of the Sfirot, of the world of emanation. And definitely when you compare it to the Or Ein Sof itself, or to the, as he used the terms in the last lines we learned earlier, the amitas inyan ein aroch, the real level of Ein Aroch is when you're looking at it compared to Atzmus Ein Sof, the essence of the Ein Sof. Over there, the vessels are completely considered utterly nothing and truly yesh me'ayin, something from nothing. Okay? So, but the last points that we were learning, see, that's because you have to always realize where he's picking up from. He's now going to he's not going to turn around again. So we're like going on switchbacks. If you ever go hiking, or you go up this way and that way, where he's climbing up. So he keeps on, but the direction turns in the Maamor. So the last point that we learned in the last switchback was he mitigated the idea that it's ein aroch, that the vessels are ein aroch. He said they're not so ein aroch because to the immediate preceding levels, it has somewhat of a traceable relationship. So therefore, from there he picks up and he says, "Makol makayim, nevertheless, hareyogam came b'pchinas yesh me'ayin." They are still, even though, notwithstanding the fact that they are considered elokus, Elokus meaning divine. And if we remember, we gave the example, they are like sparks of fire that have left the fire. They're separated from the fire, but they're still of the same substance, which gives them some kind of a connection and some kind of a closeness. The very idea that they're still of the same type of entity, which is they are divine. Nevertheless, let's not forget that they are also considered something from nothing. And the real reason for that is because they are limited. They don't have any comparison to the infinite light that has no limitation. And in truth, even the levels that we spoke about earlier, Adam Kadmon and Koyach HaGvul of the Ein Sof, they're all still part of the infinite. The real limitation only starts in Atzilus. The visible limitation starts in Atzilus. That's why we said, and remember the wording of the Avodas HaKodesh of the writings of Rameir ben Gabai, where he says that that Hashem has a power to limit, and V'hagavula nimtza memenu itchila, and the Gavul, and the limited entities that are to be found from him first are the Sfirot, the attributes, and what he's referring to is to the Kalim of the spheres, like he explained earlier, that it's referring to the vessels, not to the oil, but the Kalim of Atzilus, they're limited. And so here there's already limitation. Everything before that, everything above Atzilus is believable, is infinite. And even Adam Kadmon, when we said there's vessels there, but which in a sense has already definition, which is definition is limitation, but he says they exist in a non-existent state, not necessarily because of themselves, but because of the light. The light is so powerful and so strong that it doesn't allow existence it doesn't allow it to be in existence. It's also still a state of potential, as he called it, shoresh neshamis, the root of the souls of the gufim of the bodies. It's still Ein Sof. So everything beyond is Ein Sof. And here is where we're dealing with gavul, limitation. And since you're dealing with limitation, that's a newcomer on the block. That's already something we've never seen before. It's astonishing to the realms of the infinite that there could be something that is limited. V'hisavusam, and they're coming into being. Hu b'derech ein aroch is in a manner of non-comparison completely. Now, in order to emphasize, to hit this home, in other words, in order to counter the mitigating factor that we spoke about earlier, that mitigates its nothingness to what's higher, he now expands the nothingness. In other words, he now magnifies how nothing it is. He amplifies or magnifies it, and is going to show us how greatly nothing it is compared to what is higher. And more than the physical world is considered nothing, has no value at all. And compared to Atzilus and compared to the divine world of Atzilus. So we all know that our material world is called Olam Asiyah, the world of completion. The made world, the world of action, but really means it's completed to be a world, to be a thing, and that's our physical world. And then above this world is Olam HaYetzira, a world of formation, where we have form, but you don't have yet substance like our world. So it's obviously a far more powerful world, because things are not so stiff yet. Things are much more fluid in that world. And then there is a state of existence even before that, which is all part of creation, which is called Olam HaBriya, the world of creation, where you have where all of existence is existing in the most subtlest of levels, which means the energy is so strong and the form and the shape is so hardly sensed. However, there is enough separateness for it to be considered already creations, all these three levels. And then above that is the world of Atzilus, which is the world of the divinity, the world of the divine. So these four stages that we discussed, the three lower stages of existence, until we get, as we say, to the material, physical, and actually the world of Asiya itself exists on two levels. There is the physical world of Asiya, and prior to the physical world of Asiya, there is a spiritual world of Asiya. So there's two sides to the Olam Asiya, to the world of Asiya. So when he says, even more than what it is, we would imagine that having to go through so many evolutions to get to our physical world, and these evolutions include powerful, incredible, great reductions of energy, filtrations and diminishment and contractions, where it goes through complete metamorphosis. The energy, in order to become so reduced and so tiny and small, and compared to what was in the earlier stages, and it goes through this transformation at least 3 primary times. So we can understand that there is a very, very far gap between the world of Asiya and the world of Atzilus, especially when we take into consideration that Asiya is not only creation, it is the most limited form of creation. And what's Atzilus? Atzilus is above creation. Atzilus is divine. So you're now comparing a limited physical creation to the realms of divinity. So we understand that the gap is enormous, and the meaninglessness. If you even if you just look at in terms of space, in terms of size, when we gaze out in outer space, we realize that that our planet Earth and everything that's in it is so minute, so nothing, so not even a crumb of not even a speck in the universe. And when we start counting the billions of galaxies that exist, even in the galaxy, you can't even see planet Earth. It's nothing. And then when you take the billions and billions of galaxies, it's all nothing. Now we're talking much, 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 much higher than that. When you are comparing all of this to the world of Atzilus, it's utterly, we say, insignificant. So he says now, notwithstanding the enormous insignificance of Asiya compared to Atzilus, it pales. That nothingness is a much lesser nothingness than the nothingness of the world of Atzilus compared to what is above Atzilus, to the Ein Sof. Everything above Atzilus, not even to before the Tzimtzum, but anything that's above Atzilus. Once you go out of the world of Atzilus and you enter into the infinite, Atzilus compared to that is even more Ein Aroch. Why? Because here you're going from finite to infinite, and therefore the gap is literally an infinite gap. When you're coming from the world of Atzilus to the world of Asiya, you're measuring within the realm of limitation, because Atzilus is also limited. Now, although there is a fundamental difference, is that Atzilus is limited, but it's still not a separate entity. It's still the extension of God into limitation. So it's divine. It's like Hashem limiting himself versus creation. And that's the biggest gap that you can imagine that there should be between a created being and divinity and the realms of the divine. Yet, the difference within divine itself between Ein Sof, what is limitless, and Gevul is greater, the greater gap, the greater insignificance than the insignificance of a stone compared to any sphera or any attribute of Atzilus. And he's going to explain. And it's even more than it's Ein Aroch, that you can't compare that the Asiya, the world of Asiya, in comparison to Atzilus. Now, why is going to show you that Atzilus and the three lower worlds, there is an interaction between them. Interaction in the sense that Atzilus flows into the lower worlds, and what really is happening is the themes and the ideas and the concepts and the parameters or of Atzilus, or let's put it the other way. Every concept or every phenomenon that exists in the three lower worlds, the origination of it is in Atzilus. So Atzilus is really the in a sense the beginning of everything that exists within the world. So and that makes a connection already. It's almost like the all the features and all the creations in the three lower worlds are imprints of Atzilus. Like Atzilus would be like a stamper that stamps itself on a paper. So although it's being stamped onto something separated, okay, the creations become a substance of something other, but there is a carrying over from Atzilus to the lower worlds, because every single creature, every single being, every definition that exists, whether it's a tree, whether it's a monkey, whether it's a spider, whether it's a comet, a star, whatever we can think of, every single entity that exists in the lower three worlds has its idea, its original essence in the world of Atzilus. Atzilus already produced within the world of Atzilus. You have all these shapes and forms, and albeit obviously in an unimaginable lofty state, but yet, if there are roses down here, is because there are roses in Atzilus, and if there are tulips down here, there are tulips in Atzilus, lilies and lilacs and sunflowers and whatever kind of flower you can imagine in a bouquet of flowers. That's flowers, that's every herb and every grass and every vegetation, every plant, every insect, everything. Now, where is the original of everything, of every creature and every being? It all originates in Atzilus. Now, in Atzilus, it's Hashem, in a sense, shaping himself into all these concepts and ideas. And obviously, it doesn't have physical form. It's even beyond spiritual form. It's divine form. But yet, it has already the definition, what differentiates it from something else. And then it goes through a powerful filter, a powerful breakaway, you might say. This is what it's called in other places, the parsa. It's not a tzimtzum, it's called the tzimtzum also, but they're called parsa, partition, that blocks the divinity from going through. And then the same concept then is translated and becomes a creature. And now it has already, as we said earlier, it's not just a something, it's also a somebody, separated. So it's very different. But there is a continuum. However, above Atzilus, in the Ein Sof, over there you can't say there are flowers and there are vegetations and there are stuff. There's nothing there. There is only pure infinite. Because if you'd be giving it shapes and forms, you're already putting in you're putting in definitions, you're putting in finitude in the infinite. Of course, because it's infinite, it has the ability to produce everything, but it doesn't have anything in it. And that's the idea that he's developing over here. That and therefore he says that we say that, and this that we say that Atzilus has already everything that exists later, that's in the kalim, in the vessels of Atzilus, not in the oiros of Atzilus. The lights of Atzilus are still, as we spoke earlier, is still an emanation of the Ein Sof, and Ein Sof doesn't have any of these features, but the kalim do. That kalim da Atzilus, because the vessels of Atzilus, nasim, they become, and I think this is saying even more. Not only did Hashem create the lower three worlds by looking at the design of Atzilus, it's not only that he he kind of copied our world based on this divine sketch that is within him. But even more than that, it's this very sketch, it's these very definitions that get filtered, that descend down through the filtration process, and they become the soul, they become the energy of all the latter creations that are then later created. So when this energy descends, when the energy of the tulip of Atzilus passes through the filtration process and goes into the next world, into the world of Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya, the Kalim element, the vessel element of Atzilus passes through, that becomes a divine energy responsible to creating the tulip of the world of Bria. It creates something. What comes out is some kind of an angel that's a tulip. I don't know exactly what kind of angel that is, but it's a nice, pleasant, pretty angel. That's a tulip of the world of Bria. And then it continues on to create. The creative power of these vessels are continuing forward, and they're creating and maybe this is related to the letters, the words. Kalim are related to words. Maybe this is related to the 10 utterances that Hashem is speaking, the utterances of let there be a tulip. As we know that every single creature has letters in it that Hashem is saying, although in the Torah you only find, general, let there be vegetation. But as explained in Chassidus, in the words "let there be vegetation," God was also saying "let there be roses and tulips and every type of plant," and the same is in everything. So these letters and these words become then the soul that produces this particular flower. And as it finally translates in our physical world, it will become a physical tulip. As it is in the world of Yetzirah, it will be some kind of a higher type of a creature tulip type of being. And then higher than that in the world of Bria. Now, there's two things we have to recognize. In those worlds, there is the force and then the outcome, the producer and the product. The product is a tulip or an angel tulip or whatever. That's the product. But the force is the divinity. But why is this divine energy creating particularly a tulip? Or why is this divine? And my wife sent me to buy her apples, a lot of apples today, she wanted to make for Rosh Hashanah. She's making some kind of like a compote for Rosh Hashanah. So she sent me to the store to buy apples. So I decided to have fun, and I was buying like every kind of apple I found. So you have all different types of apples. They are all apples, but they were so different. There was Fuji apples and Gala apples. And then I found golden, it wasn't golden yellow. Over here on Trader Joe's over here, we have all kinds of really, like a whole array of all kinds of different apples. And it's amazing. The texture is different. The color is different. The taste is different. I was looking for the Granny Smiths, and I was really sour. Couldn't find them. Right? So you have all these different types of apples. And that's because, why? Because the energy that's coming down, although even in the apple, when God said, let there be an apple, included in that is the potential for so many different types of species of apple. And that's because the energy is so multifaceted, contains within it so much potential. And so it's not just in the product, it's in the Chayas Elokei, in the godly energy that has been already particularized. Obviously, in Atzilus, as explained in other places, the sourness of an apple or the sweetness of the apple is depending on the etymology of chesed and gevura, of kindness and severity, which creates sweetness and sourness of an apple. But the fact that it has already sweet and sour, however we're going to define it in Atzilus, that's already a definition. So what he's saying is that ha'kelim d'Atzilus, that the vessels of Atzilus come down, nasim, they come down, and they become Neran. They become the Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama. They become the three levels of soul. Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Libiyah, to the three lower worlds, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya, which each of these three worlds, in general, the world of Bria receives the soul, the world of Yetzirah receives the Ruach, the spirit, and the world of Asiya receives the Nefesh, the living life force. But in more specific, in each one of them, in each one of these three worlds, there is nefesh, ruach, neshama, a soul, a spirit, and a life force, if you call the nefesh a life force. So, and what are they? It's the vessels. So that means that the vessels have obviously a relationship with everything that is going to be produced, because they're responsible for producing it. And how are they producing it? Of course, there's an element of yesh me'ayin that's taking place, something from nothing. But now we're not talking about that. Now we're talking about the translation. It's something from nothing because you're going from a divine entity into a created entity. But it's a continuum in the fact that the flavor and the features and the properties of this somebody that's being created, this limited creation that's being created, is mirroring and reflecting and is of the same type of the energy that's in Atzilus. So obviously, you're connecting the two. There is a carryover. So you can't say on it that the three lower worlds and even the world of Asiya is utterly nothing to the world of Atzilus. If it's very much, in this sense, an evolution of it. And everything that was created bibiyah in the three lower worlds, everything that is there in the three lower worlds, and we mentioned this earlier, everything stems from the vessels of the world of Atzilus. The because Hashem and the vessels of Atzilus, we already referred to this earlier in the Maamor, God and the vessels and the containers of Atzilus and his garments, which is Garmu, his garments, the vessels of Atzilus, he unifies with them because, as we said before, the vessels are still him. So he unifies with them, and through the oil, he completely unifies with them. To do what? Livroi, to create the creations. Now, in that state where God unifies and becomes a life force for the three lower worlds, he unifies with the Sfirot to become a life force in the three lower worlds. So over here, we have to differentiate. Over here, what's coming into play is both the oiros and the kalim, the lights and the vessels. The lights are the power, the infinite power to create something. That does not get mitigated, and that does not get shaped and formed, or it does not conform to the limited creations that it's producing. That remains abstract. It remains Or. It remains Ein Sof, and that's the reason why it has the power of the Ein Sof to do the magic to create something from nothing. But that's the Ihu, because it says Ihu v'garmu chad. So it says that he and his garments are one. So the he, that's the oir, that's the light. The garments, that's the vessels. The b'chinas ihu l'mayla megeder anavroy. The ihu, the him himself, is above the geder. The geder means the fence, which really means the parameters of the creation, or the context of creation. And he has to be above the context. The moment he would become within the borders of creation, then that would be a definition and a defined being. Then it wouldn't be omnipotent, and he wouldn't be limitless, and he wouldn't have, and then wouldn't be able to create something from nothing. So he himself, you have a mixture over here. He himself, who remains above the limitations, then he has the power to create because he has limitless power. But the vessels, which are the kalim, is what we're talking about the whole time. Who has already a shaychus, has already a relationship to the creations. Hare, I'm going to skip a moment the parentheses. This proves that they have some kind of a value. But the vessels of Atzilus, if you measure them up to the Oir Ein Sof itself. Now let's go again. Let's go Tatzilus and the vessels and to the Oir Ein Sof. Have no relationship at all. So the vessels of Atzilus, in a sense, are closer to the actual creations and to our limited creation, to us physical human beings, and or any physical object, than they are to the Ein Sof, because the Ein Sof is beyond all definitions and all limitations, and this has already the primary definitions, which later blends and creates and develops every type of definable entity that there is. So I'm going to come back tomorrow to the little parentheses over here. We'll leave the one last parentheses and the kitzer, Be'ezus Hashem, for the next class. And meanwhile, let's see Mashiach today.